Well, to say it didn't go the way we planned would be an understatement. So I thought, let's just rip off the band-aid with a few truths right off the bat. There was about a 90% chance that the Indiana Fever would look like an inexperienced team against a very veteran team. The offense looked like it was in regression at times. Rotations were mind-boggling. Defensive scheme was just trash. It was garbage. And the Suns stepped up their game and they played well. The Sun outplayed the Fever. AT had a triple double. DeWanna Bonner had 22 points. Looked like an all-star, 100% in the first half for sure offensively, but also played great defense. Mayberry was lights out, 27 points, just raining in threes on us, which again, perimeter defense was lacking. And the Connecticut Sun shot 50% from three, and they shot 49% overall. Burton and Nelson Adota each had 16 points, which many of you watching this video are probably like, who? And that's just kind of what, it's just the way the game went. Everyone on the Sun, they had a career shooting night. They played lights out, and the Fever played one of their worst games of the season, honestly. Let's talk about some of the interesting things. So the Sun, specifically, the way they kind of adapted, and they showed that they were a veteran team, veteran coach team, is that they opted to have DeWanna Bonner out on the point, and she would pick up Clark. Now, they were not doing full court. They weren't trying any of that stuff that you normally see from a lot of other teams, like a la GC Sheldon, which literally glued to her all the way up the court. But they just had DeWanna Bonner pick her up a half court. Great defender, has length, has speed that can stick with Clark, make her take a tough shot. But then you had Carrington, who was ready for the switch. So often what happened, and normally our bread and butter, is that AB would come up for a pick, and then when the pick and roll would happen, they would switch. But now when they switch, now you have a defender you would prefer, like Carrington, onto Clark, and DeWanna switches off onto AB to keep pressure there. And they found opportunities. Clark still was able to find shots, but ultimately Clark didn't shoot super well, and DeWanna Bonner rejected her at one point on a drive, made a shot difficult. She did her job, and they disrupted Caitlin Clark. On the Fever side, it was a disaster class. It was there's like so many bad moments came to mind. Perimeter defense, obviously still terrible. They're losing each other in switches, help defense. Perimeter play gets lost, and then the next thing you know, there's just a kick out for an open three. And if they're having a game like Marina was having, then you're cooked. You're cooked. There are so many points where even as bad as things went in the game, which we'll get into, things out of the player's control. Even with that, there were still moments where the Fever were getting within striking distance. Like they were getting we can just go on a run. But when that would happen, Marina Mayberry would come in. I think I called her the answer last time they played, but they would come in and Marina would just sit there and be like, okay, I'm just gonna hit back-to-back threes and push this far out of reach. And it became frustrating to watch. The other thing they had was the Asia Wilson effect. If you remember, first game right after the break, they were leaving Asia Wilson open on those elbow free throw line range 2-pointers, and she was hitting them all down. And today, they did the same thing against Alyssa Thomas. And Alyssa Thomas, with that push shot, that is her shot. That is her bag. And if you were just going to let her shoot that, then you're messing up. And a good scheme, which they did do, was they sagged off of Alyssa Thomas when she was shooting 3-pointers, because she doesn't do that. The torn labrums don't help her do that. But you can't leave her open for her best shot. That's just bad planning on the side of the Fever. And there were multiple times where there would just be free drives to the basket. We didn't make it hard on them. Defensively, the Fever just looked like the worst defense in the WNBA, which is pretty much what they have been all season. Let's talk about a few factors that were not on the players, but still affected the game, are too glaring to ignore. And the first one is, obviously, we know the WNBA officiating is really inconsistent. This game was particularly bad, and one of the main issues was the clock issue. So multiple times in the game, the clock stopped inexplicably. The shot clock wouldn't roll over, something would happen. Turns out that it was on the refs' equipment, which somehow I still believe is on the refs, even though it's an equipment issue. I still feel like somehow they were doing something incorrectly. I don't know what's going on there, but it ruined the pace of the game, and that affected the Fever. And the Fever have no control over it. I don't know how in a playoff game this wasn't checked. As someone that has been an event producer, stuff like this should be run through, checked before game multiple times. There should never be a scenario where you get into a game and this is magically happening. So disappointing from the WNBA side, the whoever is in charge of providing the equipment, maintaining the equipment, producing that side of it. Failure around. But beyond that, there were several blown calls, and one of them that started right after the game was they called a foul on Aaliyah Boston because, of course, Aaliyah Boston, she's near the play, it's on her, and she literally just caught the ball off of a rebound, got a foul called on her. Now, they did say a foul did happen during the play, but Chrissy Side still had to use a challenge because she doesn't want the foul to be on Aaliyah Boston and have Boston be in foul trouble knowing that she gets targeted by the refs. So the refs' incompetence caused a wasted challenge. I mean, the challenge was successful, but it's still a wasted challenge because you only get so many. And even though you get your timeout back, and it thankfully didn't affect the game, but it's just one of those things where you should not be punished for reffing being so incompetent in the WNBA. It shouldn't be a thing. There were several out of bounds calls. One of the most egregious ones happening, there's one that was off Temi, that was clearly off Temi, that worked in our favor. There was one that was clearly off the Sun, and the ref calls it right. All the Fever players are calling it. The ref calls it right. The ball is in Wheeler's hands, and then referee that's back down the court that definitely did not have any view on this. And this happened multiple times, that a ref that was back on the play ended up calling a late whistle for either a foul of the bucket, or in this situation, where it's like, what are you doing? Why are you making this call? You couldn't have looked up at the Jumbotron because on the replay, it was obvious that it was off a sub player. So I don't know where this call is coming from, that this ref reverses it. And meanwhile, Mabry slaps the ball in anger because it's freaking Mabry. She's a wild card. Should have got a technical for that. So that's not even paid attention to. It's just so much is missed. One other thing that just bugs me personally that I want to talk about is that I think that contact to the head fouls should be reviewed more often. I know in some cases this would affect Clark because she has been the perpetrator with some blocks at the basket. But in this case, the eye poke from Carrington was just, it was uncalled for. I gotta say what I see. And the fact is that when I go to block, I have my hand raised like this. I don't make my hand go like this and then swipe downwards for a player's face. That just doesn't happen. And you can turn around quickly and do everything you want, but that was bad. It was a bad look, and the fact that a player is able to get away with a play that, and I'm not to say that Jewel Lloyd, for example, early in the season had a black eye and played through it, shot phenomenally against the Fever. So I'm not saying that, and Clark herself said that it didn't affect her. Whether that's true or not, whether that's how she really feels, who knows? But you shouldn't be able to just get away with that stuff in a televised game. And especially when I think there was a ball stoppage at some point, you should go. There should be a way for that to be reviewed, either through coach's challenge. I'd be fine if coaches have to use a challenge to do it. I don't care, but you got to protect your players and you got to set the tone for what is acceptable during a game. And when that kind of stuff happens, you got to talk about it. And then the irony of it all is later when Clark, swings the arm across, catches Carrington. Carrington loses a contact lens. Carrington's heard over audio saying that nobody would get away with that kind of foul, when she literally at the beginning of the game got away with just raking Caitlin Clark's face and jabbing her in the eye with her freaking hand, with the worst block form what I've ever seen in my life. I don't know. There's no defense of that. There's no defense. And all is to say, this is not the reason the Fever lost. Again, the Sun played better than the Indiana Fever. Now, these are things that affected the Fever. And despite all that, they were still in the hunt at halftime, close enough to within striking distance so you could win a game. It's not all on the reffing, but there's just so many moments where I'm just come on. What are we doing? The next piece is the uncomfortable conversation, which I hate to have, but it's just, we have to talk about it, which is we've been through most of a season and the team has been winning, But I think it's clear at this point that like it's despite Christy sites. Like I think that she has grown in a lot of ways. There's been a lot of ways where I've been seeing good things, but the Fever win through offense. They win through offense. They win through Caitlin Clark being a phenomenal, generational, unbelievable talent, and the rest of the pieces that have been assembled around her that are performing well as well. However, if you are a defensive coach and your defense has the same issues over and over again, like we talked about, you're leaving players open, perimeter defense is lacking, and you're the second worst defense in the entire league, and it's pretty much one of the things that is keeping you from being a contender, then you have to ask the question, should this be our coach going forward? It is the head coach's job to prepare the team, and the team did not look prepared. Definitely not as prepared as the Sun looked, but just standards all across the board did not look prepared for this game on multiple levels, especially defensively. And if that's your thing, then I have to ask the question. And it sucks to ask the question. I don't want to talk about this, but I want this team to be successful. If Wednesday comes around and the Fever have made adjustments and they look good, and there's not weird questions like, why are we still starting Nalissa Smith if we're going to start her, and then as soon as she gets out of the first rotation, she never appears back in the game, then let's get a different coaching staff. Let's make some changes. Like let's do something. But if things change, if things look better, if they make adjustments that look good, then I'm happy to continue this experiment, because I have seen progress. But at this point, it's getting to the point where this is crunch time. This is where you need a really good coach to make adjustments and help you win the game. If she's not doing that, then she's not great for us long term. Now, I know this has been a big downer, so let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the good stuff. And the silver lining is, again, the Fever played their worst game, the Sun played their best game, and even within all that, the Fever, as bad as the end score looked, the Fever still had a chance to win this game. Even with all the clock stoppages, missed calls, Christy sides not preparing them defensively, there is still a chance that they win this game. Which means that there's a very good chance that come Wednesday, they're going to win. So Wednesday's a new day. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't great from three, but Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, they found ways to score. They found ways to do their thing. Lexi Hull, still super active, run around the court, making plays happen. Caitlin Clark still got open shots. Now, one of the worst shooting nights of her life. Coming into this game, my key was I just want Clark to come out and hit a three early. Just hit 1-3 early, get that confidence going, and she's unstoppable, but the rhythm never happened. She hit 2 later on, and it was kind of looking good, but 2 for 13 ain't going to cut it. I don't think she has another bad shooting night. I think she comes back. We have a nice revenge game. Things are looking good. We're back on track. Dantas, 12 points off the bench. But I think that we just need to be honest with ourselves that a lot of us came in probably thinking this team is special. They're different. They have experience in tough situations, crunch time situations. But the reality is this is just a young team with a newer coach, and struggles were going to happen. And we just have to take that this might just be that outlier game. But everything else points to they still had a chance, even in a game where everything went wrong and everything went right for the Suns. So I think the focus should be, and the expectation for Wednesday is the team cleans it up and they have a real shot to win. And if they can win just this one game, then we're going back to Gamebridge. And my money's on the Fever if we get to Gamebridge. 100%. That's it for this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And thank you all for supporting the Grace Burger video, the last video I put out. It was really fun interacting with you all in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And the one thing so a lot of people were saying that I should just get a jersey anyways. Right now, it's not super feasible for me. So if you, the promise I'll make is this: if I get any donations, I will put them towards the Grace Burger Jersey Fund. I will buy a Grace Burger jersey and I will wear it for the rest of my videos of 2024. That is, I'll put it in the rotation. I'll either be wearing it or it'll be replacing the Boston jersey back there. That's the deal I will make with all of you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, You're going to be amazing today because you are amazing. Catch you next episode.